Hello everyone. Today I wanted to discuss with you some of my personal thoughts and opinions regarding the Atomic Heart and Reverse 1999 collab. I have been hesitating whether to make this video or not, but after talking with some friends I decided to, go for it. Again, these are just my personal thoughts regarding the Atomic Heart game and the collaboration, so if you enjoy them then that's completely fine. I am part of the player base that thinks this collaboration was a mistake and shouldn't have happened in the first place. Now, before I continue talking about the collaboration, I want to talk about Atomic Heart. There are valid reasons to dislike it outside of the game itself, like the controversy related to developer Montfish's unclear stance and vague responses about the current invasion of Ukraine. If you want a more thorough explanation on this, I will leave some articles in the description. But here's the thing, even if none of that were at play here, the game itself is like an edgy Bioshock clone with an insufferable protagonist, P3. I watched the whole story, excluding the DLC of course, and let me tell you, the protagonist is extremely insufferable. He speaks like an American from a Marvel movie, almost. It's so out of place and doesn't feel like how someone from the 50s will speak. I guess I shouldn't be too hard on him in this sense. Pretty much all of the dialogue in this game feels strange, exaggerated and aggressive, like it was written by an angry teen or something. Not to mention P3 is pretty dense most of the game and every character around him has to explain and info dump the story to him, and he still doesn't get it most of the time. And he calls the only woman that works in the facility and saved his life pretty much at one point too. So yeah, guy sucks, not a fan. I am not surprised that Blue Box decided to make the twins playable instead of him. Going back to the game in general, the pacing is crazy fast, yes, yet I felt like I was getting nothing out of it. The social and political commentary is extremely superficial, and when it tries to say something it fails in my opinion, which is a shame because I thought there was potential in some of the questions the game asks regarding the use of technology, for example. But again, it just doesn't follow on these questions in a satisfying way. If anything, the game is more worried about trying to get a laugh out of the player with attempts at comedy, at being funny. I say tries because the jokes are awful too, and P3 saying crispy critters every 5 seconds ruins them immediately. Moving on, there was also the issue of some segments being literally taken from Bioshock, like the lighthouse and the underwater raptor scene specifically. Yeah, I wasn't joking when I said the game tries to copy Bioshock. There were also enemies that looked and sounded a lot like clickers from The Last of Us, which was bizarre. Finally, I wanted to address some players saying the game glorifies the Soviet Union and communism. After watching the story, I can say for certain that this isn't true, at least in my opinion. If anything, the game falls under a Red Scare rhetoric most of the time, one of the major plot points being the fact that the Soviet Union planted a secret combat mode in their robots and is exporting them all over the world with the goal of destroying the West pretty much. Again, this could have been an opportunity to analyze and critique the imperialism done by the Soviet Union, but the writing lacks the tools for this conversation. There's also the part of the story where they experiment on the population and want to mind control their thoughts and actions so everyone thinks and does the same. All done in a very cartoonish and poorly executed manner, as I mentioned before. Almost like the Soviet citizens back then were just mindless zombies that just repeated everything the state propaganda said. This part almost felt like how an American conservative would imagine the people that lived in socialist countries. If you are curious about my thoughts regarding this sort of idea present in media and in academia, I recommend watching my Farewell Rayashki video. Before closing this segment and discussing this collab story, I need to talk about the fridge. Sorry. We have to talk about Nora, because I hate this thing. If you think she's uncomfortable to listen to in the collab, let me tell you, in the game she's so much worse. To the point I had to skip her dialogues by the end of the game. She was written off as a joke when she's an actual harasser, which says a lot about the writers of the original game and the misogyny at play here. Honestly, it surprised me a lot Bluebuck chose to make her playable as the free unit, considering her very offensive sexual behavior. Not to mention, most of the cast is comprised of teenagers, which honestly makes this choice even more upsetting, in my opinion. Nora is by far one of the worst in-game aspects of this collaboration because of what she represents and what her inclusion in the roster means for the future of the game. I also want to raise concerns over the jokes part of the player base has been making and saying regarding this issue. I have seen people comparing her to Tuesday and Anjonala, for example, which makes absolutely no sense to me. In fact, Nora is exactly what some people complained Nala was back when she came out, yet I don't see the same voices call out this character, who's an actual harasser, by the way. With this segment now concluded, we can finally move on to the story of the collab itself. I will say I enjoyed it a lot more than I did the original game story. Watching Bertin, Mesmer and X interact was pretty fun, and I found it interesting that the writers decided to bring Mesmer to a world without arcanists that puts rationality above all else to see how she will react. From what I saw, the plot takes place shortly before the Atomic Heart story begins and decides to focus on the plague rather than on the collective project. This, I think, was a good choice on behalf of Bluebuck, since it does fit the theme of the 3.x series better. Though I will say, Bertin saying at the end that the sacrifices made will help the future generations did remind me a bit of the rhetoric used by the warmongers in the Foundation and Xeno to justify the conflict. I found this line a bit out of place and unlike her established character, who's supposed to question the sacrifice of innocence, even if it is for the greater good. The villain this time was pretty obvious from the very start of the story, and his motives get established pretty clearly early on, and the fact he doesn't try to redeem himself at any point, even after he dies, I found interesting, I will say, this part. But I guess it was mostly so the twins get the chance to save the day at the end. Now, you might have noticed that I haven't talked about the twins so far. That's because they are not really characters in the original game. What I mean by this is that they barely have any screen time outside of the final boss battle, and when they do, they are just standing there or moving strangely. In the collab story they decided to give them actual personalities and voice lines, which is interesting. I do think Bluebug did a better job with them than the Atomic Heart writers, though from what we have discussed so far we can see that this isn't exactly a difficult task. At the time of writing this, it has been almost a week since the release of the collaboration, and judging from the available data they sold relatively well, though not as much as Ezio, and it is hard to say if it will bring the new players they were hoping to get. Most of the Atomic Heart hype has died down by now, and its fans are mostly Russian who have little to no interest in a game like Reverse. Kinda makes you question what was even the point of this collaboration in the first place. So in conclusion, I have a lot of issues with Atomic Heart and the fact Bluebug decided to collaborate with them. I decided to watch the original game's story, and all I found is a poorly written male power trip first-person shooter, and what's worse, they decided to make Nora a playable character. One of, if not the worst character in the game. The situation has gotten to the point where multiple players are looking for ways of not claiming her, and rightfully so, of course. Even if I found the collaboration story to be okay, I do think that considering everything we have talked about so far, this is a step in the direction I disagree with. Completely. Alright, that's it from me. If you disagree with me, that's fine, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments. In a respectful way, of course. Thank you all for watching, and take care.